Alright, so this is a quick tour of the layered Sarasota, Florida map file. When you download your zip file, you're going to have a set of both SVGs and PDFs that are ready for laser cutting or paper cutting in your Cry-Cut/Silhouette type machine. And this is what you're going to have. So the first file, Layered Maps, just shows you the final product. Now, this is still a live file, as in all of the layers are still here, but it gives you a preview of the 3 other files, and then you can always come in and use these as well if you'd like. So these are a little bit different, but they just kind of show you what you're getting. So there is a square 12 by 12 version, an 11 by 14, and then an 11 by 14 that has no border. Now, the border is actually kind of nice because that does allow you, if you want to assemble the file, seal it really well, and then pour resin. So you could do a resin depth map instead of just a visual depth map. I've tested these both as cut paper and as cut wood, and they work. So you have a couple different sizes here, and then you have one sort of very basic one that you could create a different type of frame for or frame up in a different way. So you'll also notice that I'm showing 2 options here. So the first option here on the left, you can actually cut the roads. So I've used a bolder, simpler map that it's a simplified version of this map, and it's a little more structured, so it's something you could cut from wood or paper, and it'll kind of hold together a little better than maybe this more delicate one. Depending on what you're doing, maybe you could cut that, but I wouldn't necessarily trust that for the laser. I don't want to create a fire. So in this case, I have this set for engraving instead. So you can cut your roads or you can engrave them as part of the land layer. So that's up to you. So let's take a peek at the other files. We'll look at the final product, and then I'll show you any little minor adjustments you might need to make in the Glowforge interface. So our tall 11 by 14 map has all the layers separated out for you, so it's ready to just upload and begin cutting and engraving. So let's look at our bottom layer first, and I'll walk you through what you're looking at here. So here is your bottom layer. You're just going to be cutting a rectangle. This pink line that you see in these layers are score marks that you can score so you know where to apply your paint that will be showing through on the next layer. This is optional. You don't have to do this. You could pre-paint your boards or use colored acrylic or something like that, but it's just an extra little feature that would allow you to score your masking, peel away your masking, paint, peel away the remaining masking, and then apply glue, and it just gives you a guideline. You'll also see these yellow little keyholes on the back 2 layers, and this is optional again, but it allows you to cut in a hanging device essentially into the file itself. So you have this little cavity that'll be on this layer, and then you have a keyhole in which you could put a flathead screw, and then it would slide up into this little slot and hold very securely and flush to the wall. So here you'll see the additional cut lines here for these, and then the score lines. They're designed to go to the edge to make the masking peeling really simple, and they're offset a little bit, so you won't see them on the layer above. So they'll be nicely hidden as well. Now, those 4 water layers are pretty self-explanatory, but let's take a look here at the top layer. So you're going to see multiple options here, and I'll explain what those options are, and it's the same for all the files. You have this just simple land file that you might want to use if you're cutting your roads as another layer. It does have a lot of little small islands, so if you're cutting from paper, typically that will work out okay. It's not going to burn up in the laser if you're using the laser, but you could choose to cut one without the tiny islands, and that's what this one is. So you could ignore the roads or engrave them, but essentially I've removed any of the smallest islands here and tried to kind of attach all of the other ones where possible so that you would have the least amount of tiny little crumb pieces to collect up. So you'll notice there's no little islands down here, and these really tiny ones, which are smaller than a grain of rice, are gone as well. This is the same as this one, except that it has the roads. And then this one kind of has a unique feature here. So you can see it's actually a combination of this first water layer and the land layer. And the reason I did that is if you do want to have the little islands for accuracy, but you want to have the water and you don't want to be collecting tiny little pieces, you can score this, peel off the masking, paint the water, and you'll still have all your islands because they're attached essentially. They're just scored onto the surface. And if we look at the final design I have in my blog, that's exactly how I did this. So instead of making the blue its own layer, which, while nice, is really difficult if you are trying to get these little baby tiny pieces of land in there, you can do exactly what I did, which is score it, peel it, paint it, put it back in the Glowforge or in the laser, because I had it sort of lined up, and then engrave the roads after. So my blog shows you exactly how I did that process and kind of explains it a little better, but that's what that layer is. So this is a combination of top water and land. This is the land with the roads. This is the land without the tiny islands, and then this is the land with nothing on it in case you want to use that file. Here is your cuttable roads, and you could still choose, if you wanted to cut this and sort of overlay it on top, but it doesn't line up exactly the same, so I would recommend doing one or the other personally. And then you also have your frame with Sarasota, Florida. Once again, kind of an optional layer, but I like sort of the finished look that you can see here. So I cut it from a contrasting material and engraved it, and that's what you have. So if you look at the finals here, here is the square version with the cutout roads made from paper, and this was cut in the laser. And then this is the option that uses the combined top two layers, and it's cut from 1/8 inch wood. The back layer I did as a 1/4 inch just because I had that on hand, and then we have some finished walnut for the frame. So that's kind of a good preview of what you'll get when you complete these files. And the other files are essentially the same. So we have our plain map, no border. It has the same features to it, the score line, so you know where to apply your glue and your paint. And you can also peel and spray paint, which is really nice. The 3 different options for your surface level here, and you can see then you have also your cuttable road. So you have every option same way. The square map is also the same, so you have your 4 water layers. You could skip your water layer and do the combo. You can use this water layer and do either the no island or island, and then you have your cuttable roads and your frame. So that's essentially what you're getting in the file, as well as all of the options. When you go to upload those to your Glowforge interface, they'll look a bit like this. You'll see that because I had colored layers just to help you be able to see it in the preview, it looks like it wants to engrave. Just make sure to switch that to cut when you're ready to do those, and that your score lines are set to score, not cut. You don't want to cut those out because then you'll be kind of defeating the purpose of the layers. So one note is for the Glowforge, these are exactly, or they should be pretty much exactly 11 by 14, but you may need to scale them down. So you can kind of see that I've scaled them down a little bit here to get them to cut. It depends on what material you're cutting, because when you cut a thick wood versus a thin wood versus paper, the laser head is moving at different speeds, and that affects the cutting area in the interface. So you may have to scale down. The way I did that was you can just rotate everything and then bring one of these into here and set it to cut. And so let's go find where that is. So here we go, cut. Let's say we're cutting white birch, which is what I typically use. And that's up at the top here, white birch, which is 140 full with 1 pass. And you can see the scale, I've made it 10,965 by 13,954, so almost exactly 11 by 14 will cut. But if it's not showing up as the ability to cut, then you can just grab everything and very slightly scale it down until it shows up and it fits. So just be aware that you may have to scale the files down very slightly for the Glowforge, depending on what you're doing. But I did want to provide them at the exact 11 by 14 size, so people with larger lasers wouldn't have a weirdly sized file. So do keep that in mind. Otherwise, if you have any questions, let me know. The blog has additional information on how I did staining for these with acrylic paint, as well as a lot of different techniques I used and settings for both the paper and the wood. So I hope you enjoy it. If you need anything, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you with the file.